brick by brick. So we're going to be talking about Commonplace books and Commonplace binders. I'm going to set this down now. How I use my Commonplace binder. So that's the thing I was just holding up earlier. A Commonplace binder does not exist, so we're really talking about Commonplace books, but in the form of a binder, which means no page numbers because the pages move around, and because the pages move around, it doesn't make sense to have an index because the index relies on the page numbers. So we just use a content section, and that's about it. So, Commonplace Binder 101. This is a 100 video playlist. Sorry, it's not 101 videos. I feel like that might be a little bit confusing. So let me know what you think about that. This is video number 74, which means we're almost 3/4 of the way through, which is very exciting. Brick by brick. So we are going to be making this, just like this chain of videos, brick by brick. Although it's more page by page. So if you go back to my very early videos, which are really bad, because that's how that works, I pretty much just added one single page at a time, and that would end up being the video. So I'm going to close this, because I'm getting a lot of dust in my face, and it'd be good to not be tripping over my words, which tends to happen when I get a lot more dust. So, skip the debt. Some people are going into college right now and taking out enormous loans with no idea how to repay them. So if you have no idea what you want to do after school and your parents are cool with it, it might be interesting to talk to them about a Commonplace book or Commonplace binder. Now, of course, this is not financial advice. I want to make that clear. I will probably not be making any sort of assessment that will result in me giving financial advice at any point during this playlist. Maybe. I believe the 66 video talked about how I have no money and I need some money, so like if someone happened to toss a few $1 million my way, that would be fun. But realistically, skipping debt in modern America, I don't know. I'm getting articles about how people are like financing their food at this point, so I don't know if this is totally avoidable. However, if you are taking notes or you're trying to figure out what to do because you don't want that debt to be super crazy, this might be a way to skip out on a bunch of it. Because if you write down your parents' strategies and your friends' strategies and the strategies that you see online, and then you look through all of your notes to see what actually works, it might be that all the information is terrible. It might also be that all the information is good, but probably it'll be a little bit in between. And so you won't necessarily have to try all the things that are going to fail in order to skip the debt. You might just have to take advice from people you don't necessarily want to take advice from. So, prove it. How am I going to prove it? Well, I'm not really going to show you guys if I have debt, if I don't have debt, how much it is, where it came from, if it even exists. Like, there are also some things that people go into debt for, like basic healthcare sometimes, where it's like you kind of need that. So I don't know. There's no way to prove it, but the way to prove that I actually use the Commonplace book or Commonplace binder is this demonstration binder. Now, this is not the one that I actually use, so it's not really proving it. This does prove that I have a plan for what my next videos are going to be, because, you know, 74, that says how, and this is the how I use my Commonplace binder video. But there's no real way to prove that this is going to work, because I kind of made this thing up on my own. So if you're using my system later in time than when I made it, it might be that it's very obviously not viable. It could also be that it's only viable for the person who makes it the first time. I don't know. So there's no real way to prove it, and there's no real way to prove this, and the only way to prove this is for someone to watch the other videos. So we're not really off to a good start. Neglected insecurities. So maybe I have some neglected insecurities. Maybe I'm worried about making videos that won't appeal to people, or they won't give them value, and I'm really freaked out about it. So in the previous video, we talked about how this could be sort of a diary. It doesn't really work like that. It's, if you're going to stretch it, it's like a journal, and then if you're going to stretch that, it's like a diary. So it's not really a diary, but maybe a diary would be a good place to put this sort of thing. So it might be that a Commonplace book or Commonplace binder doesn't actually solve the problem that you're trying to deal with, and it might be that you just need a standard diary, or maybe it's a standard planner, or maybe it's a standard calendar. It could be a standard thing, and there are like 100 different things that could be. So it might be good to just try this general common place to put all your things for fun. So if you have free time, which it kind of feels like we don't really have anymore, maybe you can do this for fun. Maybe you can take a break and try out some interesting thing from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago that has been modernized as a binder. I feel like I might be giving myself a little bit too credit, or might be giving myself a little bit too much credit for that one. So I am the only one, as far as I know, to call it this specific thing, but there are some things which are almost objectively much more efficient. And so that would be all the personal knowledge base systems. So that's like Evernote, Notion, Obsidian. Nothing is sponsored, by the way. Might be next year. I roll out some sponsorships that might be kind of fun, but I probably need to set up an email for that, or at least make this email accessible so someone can send me a message and be like, hello, we would like to offer you a thing. But I haven't done that. So these videos are basically for fun. So maybe while I'm making these videos for fun, you could work on a Commonplace for fun. Heirloom or a curse. So how I use it, maybe how some other person uses it. So historically speaking, people have, diaries, notebooks, or whatever. Sometimes they would pass on their journal or their Commonplace, but sometimes it's like, that's kind of like passing on my internet search history to people. I don't really know if I want to toss that to my kid and be like, here you go, this'll be great. Because it might be that the stuff only works when the person's at the same age as the person who gives it to them. It might only work at that specific era of history. Like, for example, if I received a book from someone from like 1920, like that'd be cool. I'd be like, wow, look at that. That's neat. I think the oldest random book that I found somewhere was actually a history book written by H.G. Wells, which I thought was hilarious, because it's like, that's the War of the Worlds guy. Why is he making a history book? And I ended up just giving it to a relative as a gift, but I thought it was pretty funny, because it's like, oh man, this guy probably has some weird opinions in here, which are just put forward as fact, because it was a lot harder to verify stuff back then. Obviously now it's also a lot harder to verify things, because we have things not made by humans and they never get tired and they just keep doing the thing. So, heirloom or curse, it depends who you are, who the person who you give it to is, and how they use it. Because it might be they're just like, oh my god, this is 100,000 pages, and they just kind of stare into the void and they spend all of their fun time not skipping the debt, but just going through all your stuff. So a home for nostalgia. So it might be that your home is filled with all these nostalgic little mementos, like a Commonplace book, and some people see it as an heirloom and some people see it as a curse. But if you don't have any kids or grandkids, I'm not really sure who's going to be going through all this stuff. Maybe it's just another relative. I don't know, but might be this is where you store your nostalgic moments, and maybe it is treated more like a diary. I don't know. Set up for the future. That is kind of like the one thing you gotta do. So, in some ways, a journal or a diary doesn't make a lot of sense as a description, because this is a thing that needs to be referred back to, because it's kind of a reference book. So, people will have different things to focus on. It might be that the one thing that you forget is your passwords, and you're like, well, I don't want to write them out digitally because that would be bad. I don't really want to use a password manager, because then the password manager is going to hold on to all the stuff. And so, like, if it gets hacked, then I'm in really big trouble. But you have the same problem if you're storing everything physically, because it could be there's a flood or an earthquake or whatever else, and the stuff gets lost somehow. So, I don't know. For the vibes. It's just, a dark academia thing, or maybe it's a light academia thing. I don't actually know all the variations of academia. as an aesthetic. I always feel like an aesthetic is kind of funny because it's like, look at me, I have my books, but I don't read them. But here we're going to talk about the books that I haven't read. It's like, okay, like that's cool, I guess. It's just not for me. So it's made for somebody else, and I don't need to talk about it because it's not made for me. So like, why would someone engage with something that's not made for them, that is not benefiting them? It doesn't make any sense. Distinct style. So this is where people will probably get their distinct style from. So if they're just chilling, if they're like, I got out of high school, I'm trying to skip the debt period, I don't want to deal with this nonsense, maybe they're just going to focus on the stuff that they like. I'm just saying, in the age of AI, it might be good to prove humanity. Just saying. Power we build. So this is, I kind of feel like I'm saying this is more of like a pen is mightier than the sword kind of situation, but it might actually be like super useful. So the power that we build by being individual people is unknown, because what kind of person are you going to be? How is that going to interact with the other people? Are the other people always going to be around? Like, it can be kind of difficult to tell. So in some ways it's better to just be super generic, but if somebody's super generic, then they're easily replaceable, and so it can get really weird. So what is the power that we build with a Commonplace book or a Commonplace binder? Maybe it's an heirloom. So maybe you could give it to someone and spread your knowledge that way. In the 2026 playlist, which I haven't made yet, I'm going to be talking about a theoretical education system. And so in that system, people use their Commonplace book or Commonplace binder to hand off knowledge to people. So they don't give it to their grandkids or their kids. Those people might end up with it by accident. But the way that I do it is more of an academic descendant tree. That's not really the right way to say it, but basically the students who do well pass on their information to students who are just moving into that grade level. And so the thought there is the information will actually be relevant because it was relevant the year before that, and it was collected or utilized by the students who actually passed the class. So I don't know if it really gets better than that. Right trajectory. So it would probably be good if we would work towards every student actually having the ability to carry knowledge around with them, rather than using a machine that holds onto all of the knowledge for them and then also does all of the thinking for them, and they never actually build any of the baseline skills. So I'm just saying, I'm getting a little freaked out by this AI stuff because it seems like nobody has a plan in place to make sure that younger generations know how to do anything. So it might be good if we at least give them the opportunity to know things. Digital detox. Oh, this is going to be a save the children thing. We're going to say no phones, no computers, no technology of any kind, not even a watch. Yeah, that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, if this is the only way somebody accesses paper, that's probably better than nothing, because if they have nothing, then there's nothing to work with. Like, there's no baseline. And so then their education will be entirely based on these chatbots, which might be locked behind a paywall. And so if they don't have any money, because they might not have a job immediately afterwards if the AI gets good enough to make the robots and stuff, so they're not going to have any assets, they're not going to have any way to prove their knowledge, and they're not going to have any way to hold on to their knowledge. It just, it seems like the worst of every world possible. So I'm not saying to, take all video games away from children or something. This is, I'm just saying it might be good to use a paper and pencil sometimes. Maybe a pen. I don't know. I'm more of a pencil guy, but obviously, this is Sharpie. So chip away at it. We're just gonna work on the thing. Brick by brick. More like page by page, as we talked about earlier. Confident action. So if you write down all the ways to do the thing, it might be some of the ways don't work out. And so, as I was talking about earlier, sorry, the monitor's just turned off, the right trajectory is probably allowing the students to actually work together and utilize the notes that they take, because otherwise why are they taking notes when they're using the machines that remember literally everything? Yeah, so write down all the wrong ways to do it and eventually find the right way. And you can take confident action because you might not solve the problem today, but you have solved it before. So you can just use whatever method you used before. I made it. There's also the sense of ownership. So I've been getting a lot of videos recommended to me lately about sometimes making the thing harder in a way that allows people to feel like they are actually in charge of the process of making the thing. So that might be IKEA furniture, that might be interacting with a fandom or something of some kind. If the person feels like they are building the thing, supposedly they will have a greater emotional attachment to it. I don't know about that. What I do know is I started a long time ago. I was like, I need to be on the right trajectory. I looked at college and I saw that people who go to college make more over the course of their lifetime if they graduate. If they don't graduate, they're the most screwed out of everybody because they have negative money and no proof of anything. That's pretty bad. And then I looked into all the different trades. I was like, okay, maybe being an electrician would be good because that's sort of related to school, that's sort of related to the workplace, that's sort of related to robotics, and then from there I could probably go into like an AI related thing if AI actually becomes a thing. I'm not saying every version of AI is the same. I'm not saying that we've reached the age of AI or anything. But what I am saying is I was trying to figure out what trajectory I wanted to be on, and like they all kind of seemed bad. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to take notes because I was thinking maybe the notes could be converted into something. So I won't get the piece of paper. But if I do enough work on my own, if I create my own elaborate system, and if I can get people to use it, and if it actually works, then I'll be able to get an honorary piece of paper. And so that way I can skip the whole debt process. And I can learn all of the trades that I have to learn to survive because, most people can't just like chill in their parents' house until they turn 30 or 40 or whatever else. They actually have to do something at some point, not necessarily all day, every day, but they probably help, at least with the family business. Where are we? Action. So we already had confident action. Now we're just talking about action in general. So you might not be super confident when you start. If you are, that's great for you. I'm very happy you are doing the thing and feeling good about it. But for a lot of us, we don't have proof. And we just have to build things because we don't have stuff to work with. And so if there are no resources, it's kind of hard to multiply the resources. It's like, you could tell me all the finance tips you want, but if I don't even have $1,000, how am I supposed to do anything with the finance tips? New notebook. So maybe you've been looking at this, you've seen me pick this up, and you're like, okay, this guy is an absolute fool. Why is he using a binder when he can't sell the binder or its contents? And there's no notebook for sale. That's kind of a foolish thing to do. Well, I might sell a notebook in the future, but I'm not really worried about buying a new notebook or selling a new notebook. And part of the reason for that is because it seems like people are doing like an anti-consumerist kind of thing right now, where it's like, I only work with what I have and I don't buy anything else. And so in some ways, I think this might be related to people being worried about the environment, but also worried about their wallets. So I think there's probably a third group of people that are like out of money, but they're like, yeah, I'm doing it for the environment. I'm trying to reduce the stuff. Yeah, we're doing a digital detox, and we're also we're not consuming anything. So whatever your method is or whatever your reasoning is, that's fine. But even if you do get the new notebook, there's sometimes the problem of saying, I have this shiny new thing and I don't want to ruin it. So like, what do I do with this thing? But you probably won't have that issue if you're just working on a binder because, you can put stuff in and take it out. So it might not be the same quality level, but at least you will have started. And if you have something that's of, quality 1 as opposed to, quality 10, then, if 10's the bigger number, you can convert the 1 into a 10. It kind of like if you have the $1,000, you might be able to convert that into $10,000. But if you don't even have the first 1,000, it's like there's nothing to do. It's like I need to buy shoes and clothes and floss and a toothpaste and a toothbrush and Like, you go through the entire day and be like, oh my god, even just to exist, it's a super long list of things. So, adapt to current realities. Maybe you don't have that first $1,000. Maybe you're trying to skip the debt. Whatever you're doing, I hope this helped explain how I use my Commonplace binder. I don't think it really did. The main thing is I use the binder to figure out I didn't really want to use the binder, and I had some other more efficient methods. So, if you want to know more about those efficient methods, maybe you could check out the next video on the Guide for Experts. So, I don't know if that one fully goes into what this video promised, but I do know I spent a lot of time setting this one up. So, hopefully I don't screw it up when I record it. And I'm pretty excited because it's going to be the 75th. And so, when we get that next video done, it's going to be 3/4 of the way through. So, thank you for making it 100% of the way through. And I hope you have a day that is 100% what you want it to be. Okay, bye.